now, and 17 with 2:05 to go. Auburn trying to break our hearts here. 19-14 in the Dogs lead. Again, you guys, hunker down. Auburn up to the line. Big Edward to the right, the little train to the right, one-man split left, a man a slot to the right.
Before Georgia football ever came through a TV in high definition, it came through the static. It sat on the dashboard of an old pickup truck. It rested on the kitchen counter while supper was being made. It hung on the belt of a man who, working outside, who couldn't stop what he was doing, but he wasn't about to miss the Dogs. There were no instant highlights. There was no social media, no replay waiting on your phone. Sometimes you couldn't even see the game at all, but somehow Larry Munson made you see everything. He could make you see the grass, feel the collision, hear the crowd leaning forward, and sense the disaster coming before the football was even snapped. Other announcers, man, they told you what happened. Larry Munson told you what it felt like. He worried with us, he pleaded with us, he celebrated with us, and for more than 4 decades, one gravelly voice carried Georgia football into homes, automobiles, workshops, deer stands, and hearts across an entire state. Some men describe history. Larry Munson made it sound unforgettable. This is the legend of Larry Munson.
10, 12, he's running over people. Oh, you Herschel Walker.
Run complete to the 25, to the 30, Lindsay's got 35, 40, Lindsay's got 45, 50, 45, 40, run, Lindsay, 25.
4th and 17. I know I'm asking a lot, you guys, but hunker it down one more time. 21, clock running. Oh, look at the sugar falling out of the sky. Look at the sugar falling out of the sky. We just stepped on their face with a hobnail boot and broke their nose. We just crushed their face. We dumped it over. David Green brought us flying down the field.
There are voices you recognize, and then there are voices that take you somewhere. For generations, Georgia fans hearing Larry Munson doesn't simply bring back a football game. It brings back a room, a road, a Saturday afternoon. It brings back the people who were sitting beside us. Maybe it was your father reaching over to turn up the radio. Maybe it was your grandfather telling everybody to be quiet because Georgia had the football. Maybe it was the sound coming from the garage while somebody worked on an old lawnmower. Maybe the TV was on, but the TV announcers were muted because the pictures may have belonged to the network, but the game belonged to Larry. That was his gift. He didn't merely tell you where the football was. He made you feel as though you had something invested in where it was going. And he never pretended to be neutral. Larry wasn't standing above the emotion looking down at it. He was trapped inside it with the rest of us. When Georgia was in trouble, he sounded worried because he was worried. When Georgia needed a stop, he didn't calmly explain the defensive alignment. He begged those boys to hold the line. When the Dogs broke into the open field, Larry wasn't worried about sounding polished. He was trying to help them reach the end zone. He didn't call Georgia they. He called Georgia we, and every person listening became part of that word. Larry Munson was born in Minnesota. He didn't grow up between the hedges. He wasn't raised wearing red and black. But beginning in 1966, Georgia became his home. And for 42 years, he delivered the Bulldogs to generations of fans on fall Saturdays. His dramatic style and open loyalty to Georgia became inseparable from the program itself. Georgia didn't simply hire Larry Munson. Over time, Georgia claimed him. And Larry claimed Georgia right back. In September of 1980, Georgia walked into Neyland Stadium and fell behind Tennessee 15-0. The season was young, the night was slipping away, and the Bulldogs needed somebody to change everything. Then a freshman from Wrightsville took the football. Herschel Walker lowered his shoulders. Bill Bates met him near the goal line, and in that collision, the future of Georgia football came crashing into the present.
15-2 Tennessee leading, crowd roaring against Georgia, trying to make them drop it so they can't hear. We hand it off to Herschel. There's a hole. 5, 10, 12, he's running over people. Oh, you Herschel Walker. My God almighty, he ran right through 2 men. Herschel ran right over 2 men. They had him dead away inside the 9. Herschel Walker went 16 yards. He drove right over Orange Church, just driving and running with those big thighs. My God, a freshman.
Georgia fans didn't know everything that Herschel Walker would eventually become, but Larry's voice told them that they had just witnessed the arrival of something different. A freshman had run through Tennessee, and the voice in the radio sounded as stunned as everyone listening. Georgia won that night 16-15, beginning the journey that ended with a 1980 national championship. But the defining moment of that season was still waiting in Jacksonville. November 8th, 1980, Georgia was unbeaten. A national championship was within reach, and with barely more than a minute remaining against Florida, it looked like the dream was dying. The Dawgs trailed 21-0. They were backed up deep in their own territory. Florida, they had the momentum. Georgia needed almost the length of the entire field, and somehow across this state, thousands of Georgia fans were standing beside a radio preparing themselves for the heartbreak. Buck Bellew dropped back, pressure came, he moved to his right, and he found Lindsay Scott. At first, it looked like a completion, then it looked like a first down, then Lindsay turned up the field, and Larry Munson saw it before the rest of the world did.
Blood and a stand-up fire. They may or may not blitz. They won't. Buck back, third down on the 8. In trouble. Got a block behind him. Gonna throw on a run, complete to the 25, to the 30. Lindsay Scott, 35-40. Lindsay Scott, 45-50, 45-40. Run, Lindsay, 25-20, 50, 10, 5. Lindsay Scott, Lindsay Scott, Lindsay Scott.
You know, Larry never needed to say touchdown. He didn't have to. By then, every Georgia fan listening was already running with Lindsay. They were running through living rooms, running alongside pickup trucks, running down the aisles of the stadium, running toward a championship that nearly disappeared. Georgia's official history remembers the play as one of the most iconic moments in college football, a late escape that preserved the Bulldogs' perfect season and eventual national championship. But Larry made it more than a play. He turned it into an inheritance. Children who weren't alive in 1980, they know that call. They know the rhythm. They know the panic. They know exactly when his voice changes. That's what Larry Munson did. He made a few seconds last forever. 2 years later, Georgia was fighting Auburn for an SEC championship and a trip to the Sugar Bowl. The Bulldogs led, but Auburn was driving. Every yard felt heavier than the last. Every snap brought the Tigers closer and closer, and Larry could feel the entire season balancing on the shoulders of Georgia's defense. He was no longer simply announcing the game. He was pleading with 11 men in silver breeches.
4th and 17. I know I'm asking a lot, you guys, but hunker it down one more time.
One more time. That was all he wanted. One more snap, one more tackle, one more moment of courage when everybody was tired and the pressure was closing in.
Auburn trying to break our hearts here. 19-14 in the Dogs lead. Again, you guys, hunker down.
The phrase wasn't rehearsed. It wasn't created in a marketing meeting. It came from a man who wanted Georgia to hold that line so badly that describing the action was no longer enough. He needed to ask for something more. Dig in. Don't bend. Don't give them another inch. Hunker down. Auburn's final pass fell incomplete. Georgia survived. The Bulldogs captured their third consecutive SEC championship and earned another trip to the Sugar Bowl. And then Larry looked at the celebration around him and gave Georgia one more line that would live forever.
22, 21, clock running. Oh, look at the sugar falling out of the sky. Look at the sugar falling out of the sky.
That is where we get our name from. The Hunker Down podcast isn't named after a clever slogan. It comes from that moment, from that voice, from that belief that when the game becomes heavy, when your legs are tired, when the other team is coming, when the entire season is sitting on one final play, you find something deeper and you hunker down one more time. 21 years after Run Lindsay, Larry could still make a moment feel as though the whole world had stopped. In 2001, Georgia was trying to win at Tennessee for the first time in more than 2 decades. The Volunteers scored late. Neyland Stadium erupted. Georgia trailed 24-20 with only 44 seconds remaining. For most teams, it was over, but freshman quarterback David Green moved the Bulldogs down the field. With only seconds remaining, Green took the snap and slipped the football to fullback Vernon Hayes in the end zone. And at nearly 80 years old, Larry Munson still had thunder in his voice.
Playing what amounts to a 4-4 fake. And there's a touchdown! Touchdown! My God, a touchdown! We threw it to Haynes. We just stuffed it with 5 seconds left. My God Almighty! Did you see what he did? David Green just straightened up, and we snuck the fullback over. Haynes is keeping the ball. Haynes has come running all the way across to the bench. We just dumped it over. It's 26-24. We just stepped on their face with a hobnail boot and broke their nose. We just crushed their face. We dumped it over. David Green brought us flying down the field.
The touchdown came with 5 seconds remaining and gave Georgia a 26-24 victory, producing one of the most celebrated calls of Munson's career. I mean, who else could have found those words in that moment? Who else saw a touchdown and imagined an old boot coming down on the face of Tennessee? That was Larry. He didn't reach for the ordinary description. He reached for something you could feel, something violent, something strange, something unforgettable. He painted football with thunder. Broken furniture, collapsing stadiums, falling sugar, and hobnail boots. And somehow every word made perfect sense. But Larry Munson's real legacy can't be measured by ranking his greatest calls, because those calls belong to more than Georgia football. They belong to families. They're Georgia fans who hear Run Lindsay and immediately think about their father. Fans who hear Hunker It Down and remember the voice of a grandfather who's no longer here. Fans who can still see the chair they were sitting in, the truck they were driving, the road they were traveling, the person, standing beside them. That connection appears again and again in the memories Georgia supporters shared after Larry's death. Stories about muted TVs, transistor radios, family members, and childhood Saturdays brought rushing back by the sound of his voice. That's the power of nostalgia. It doesn't simply remind you of what happened. It reminds you who you were when it happened and who was there with you. Larry gave Georgia fans the soundtrack to those memories. He made a radio feel like the front row. He made a truck cab feel like Sanford Stadium. He made people who were hundreds of miles apart feel as though they were all sitting together, holding their breath, waiting on Georgia to survive one more snap. In 2008, after 42 seasons, Larry Munson stepped away from the booth. Georgia honored him inside Sanford Stadium, and the university thanked him for delivering the Bulldogs to fans around the world for more than 4 decades. 3 years later, on November 20th, 2011, Larry passed away at his home in Athens. Georgia didn't simply lose an announcer that night. It lost one of the last voices capable of making an entire state stop what it was doing and lean toward a radio. The microphone went silent, but the voice never did. Because every autumn it returns. It returns when Georgia plays Florida and Lindsay turns up the field. It returns when a freshman running back lowers his shoulders. It returns when the Dawgs walk into Neyland Stadium. It returns when the defense needs one more stop. It returns when the Georgia fan looks at another Georgia fan and says, "Hunker down." In 2012, Georgia permanently named the home radio booth at Sanford Stadium for Larry Munson. But the truth is, Larry's real monument was never a booth. It was us, the people who still repeat those words, the people who still replay the calls, the people who pass them from one generation to the next. Georgia football has changed. The stadium's larger, the pictures are clearer, the players are faster, the information never stops, but beneath all of it, the feeling is still the same. It's still fathers and sons, it's mothers and daughters, grandparents and grandchildren. It's still silver britches coming through the smoke. It's still the Redcoat Band. It's still the railroad tracks. It's still the first cool Saturday of the fall. It's still hope. It's still fear. It's still heartbreak. It's still believing anyway. And somewhere beneath the noise of modern college football, if you listen closely enough, you can still hear the static. You can still hear the crowd rising. You can still hear that gravelly voice telling Georgia to hold the line. That's why this show carries those words. Not because they look good on a logo, not because they sound good in an introduction. We carry them because they mean something. They remind us where we came from. They remind us of the people who taught us to love the Dogs. They remind us that Georgia football has never been just a game. And they remind us that when the pressure rises, when the moment becomes too heavy, when everybody's wanting to see whether Georgia will stand or fall, we do what Larry Munson taught us to do. We hunker down. Go Dogs.
30 years really goes by pretty quick. But I got some great memories. And when I think back to anything I've ever said or any call I've ever made, it really came because I wanted to win so badly. And I've loved my time here at Georgia. It's been the best of my life. And when the time comes that I can't do this anymore, I hope Bulldog fans remember I was always looking out for them. And whenever they see the red and black running out onto the field, I hope they know a part of me is out there too.